Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And today's episode is another Instagram live Q&A. Today's the 5th of March. And tomorrow's episode, who's coming out tomorrow's episode? Les Edwards from ED Landscape is out tomorrow. So he's in New South Wales, got a company he's got a crew in Sydney and also in Mudgee. So that'll be a good one. So the first question is from Tom Lynch. What's an acceptable time frame to get a quote back to someone? So it's a pretty good question because obviously it does depend on the size of the project you're quoting and how detailed it is. So if it's just, for example, just some crazy paving you're doing, that's all you're doing. Probably, if you're going out there, I'd probably try and get it back the same day or the next day. There's no point letting your quotes build up so you get overwhelmed with the amount of work that you got to do. So if you've got small ones that you can get out pretty quick, it's not a bad idea to do that. Some quotes I do take longer than they should, like a few weeks, and it also can depend on if you're getting other people to do certain parts, like if you're subcontracting out parts of it. So if you're relying on other people to get a quote back to you, that can take a while as well. So if you do have that situation, you'd want to get onto that, getting them to get their quote in as soon as you can. So even if you're not going to look at the quote for a week, you might want to run your eye over it and work out if you're going to need to get quotes from other people so that you can get them working on it at the same time as you are. So you don't want to wait a week and then look at it and then send off an inquiry to them and then find out that it's going to take them 2 weeks and then you're at 3 weeks. So, yeah, probably within 2 weeks is ideal, I think. But the quicker you get it back, the more likely you are of getting the job, I think. So, like at the moment, I've let too many quotes build up. So I've got 9 I'm working on at the moment. So I've done 3 today and I'll do another 1 or 2 tonight and then get a couple out tomorrow morning as well. So they're not massive, but like I said just at the start, if you let them build up, they become a bit overwhelming, then you don't get any done. Next question from Cascade Landscapes. What are some of your systems incentives to motivate or push your staff to work hard and take pride in their work? Like bonuses, team bonding events, etc. So I think if you can't push someone to take pride in their work, they're either going to do that or they won't. So if they don't do that, then I'll get rid of them because that's like, it doesn't matter how slow someone does something if they can do it properly, well, to a point. But you want to be able to have someone who cares about what they're doing and has a passion for it. So you have to have the pride in what you're doing. You can't have an incentive for that. Like, you can't say, if you do a rubbish job, I won't give you anything. If you do a good job, I'll give you something. They should just want to do that anyway. That is their job, doing things properly. In terms of hard work, like I think rather than pushing people to work hard, you've got to realize that it's not their business. So it's a dangerous trap to get into because you could incentivize them to work hard, and it's also not something that you can quantify, like how hard, what's working hard. But if you give them an incentive to work hard, that can just become their normal thing. So if they're if you don't pay them, then they'll think, oh, well, I won't work hard then. So it can sort of de-incentivize, if that's a word. I don't think it is, but you know what I mean. So you just got to find the right people. I'm lucky I've got 2 guys who work hard, like harder than most people would. Like we don't stop for smoke or lunch. If they need to, they do. But so, whereas other people would whinge and complain about that. Like I've worked in some places like retail and, and you also see when you're a customer, people just whinge about, oh, I haven't had my morning tea yet, blah, blah, blah. And they've just been standing there at a cash register. So, yes, like you don't need to stop as much as people do. So when you've got someone who realizes that and they just work through it, you've got a hard worker. So, it's tricky because by providing these bonuses and incentives, you can actually do the opposite and end up worse off than what you were if you didn't offer it. So I don't offer anything. Back in the early days when it was just me and one guy, like if I made a lot of money on a job, I'd give him some like as a bonus. But the more people I get on, the less money I make on jobs. So that hasn't happened for many years. Abcam Horticulture said, during MIFGS, will you be using your Better Homes and Gardens contacts to get you a TV spot and become a global trending superstar? Well, I do still have, we did some work for them when they worked at Flemington Racecourse. And So we were sort of in the background, workers in the background. And I do still have my Better Homes and Gardens t-shirt, which I don't wear on TV anymore, but might bring that out just to a bit of a flashback to the past. But now they're the behind the scenes crew as well as the on camera crew. They're just a great bunch of people. Everyone I've met on the Better Homes and Gardens crew, so it's good to catch up with them every year. Endemic Enviro, so he's coming out. We've got a fair few podcasts banked up, so I'm not sure when that will be. Could be after the garden show, but he's coming up on an episode, and he's asked, "What's your favourite local native plant to your zoning?" So I'm not very up with the local indigenous plants, but I did look into it to see what was on our list. And within Geelong, there's like 19 zones, and we're in zone 7. And out of that list, my favourite would be the Melaleuca lanceolata. So I don't know the difference between that and Armillaris, but when we went on a holiday just to Anglesea, the caravan park there, and it's full of Melaleucas there. And some, like just around the streets, can look pretty messy, and they fall over pretty easy, and they have foliage coming up from the bottom. But the ones there are really looked after, and they're trimmed, so they're a lot more architectural looking than just leaving the foliage all down low. So you've got all the trunks down the bottom and the foliage up the top, so they look pretty awesome. So when they're looked after, they can look pretty cool, especially for a native tree. So that'd be my favorite, I reckon. There's also the Alicacurina, I don't know, the verticulata, or I don't know what the other one is, but they're black shea oak and the drooping shea oak are both on there. So they're both pretty cool as well, with the wind going through the foliage. They make a good sound. Dan Foreman said, "Sending all love to all the landscape companies out there enduring all the bullshit." So I asked him what he was talking about. It's basically just about clients pushing jobs back, so then you've got no work to do because you've allowed for their job, or clients not paying, or subcontractors not turning up when they're supposed to. Just all the struggles that you go through as a landscaping business owner. So he's just sort of reaching out to everyone, just let them know that you're not alone, and you'll get through it. So keep soldiering on. This is a good one from Geelong Coastal Tiling. What are your thoughts on the IQ Power Tool saws, the dry cutting with dust collection? So I've seen these in the US. They use them a fair bit over there on their 110 hertz power. But I hadn't seen that there was ones in Australia, so I've never used one. But they do look a little bit slow cutting through, and I don't know whether you can, because I like to cut down in layers. So first you cut the saw lightly on your pencil mark first, and then just go down in layers. So I don't know how easy it is to do that, because I think haven't seen them enough to know. But he said he's got 3 of them, and knows of a landscaper who's got one as well, who cuts with stone on it. So it'd be a pretty good thing to give a try, because the thing I hate most about brick saws is, because we use a wet saw, just the mess that they make, having all the water in there. So if these are cut and dry, and they're also able to get rid of the dust, so the dust isn't flying everywhere, so you're not inhaling it. It also doesn't get rid of the pencil markers straight away, so you wouldn't have to use a texter. So it's definitely something we'll look into. So it's an IQ power saw, or power tool saw. And then I've seen them with the dust collection bin at the end when they're cutting, and the amount of dust in there is pretty crazy how quick that fills up. Jones Landscape said, "What programs are people using for quoting paperless?" So I always thought he was talking about sending out quotes, but because mine isn't paperless, I just do a Word document and then print it and sign it and scan it and then send a PDF. But he's talking more about so that you don't have to print out plans and measure off with a scale ruler. So I think I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it was Sam Collier, or I think it was Jaden Weatherly, who used, I've forgotten the name of it now. Build Exact, I think it might be. So he said he uses that so you can scale off, so you can get a PDF design, and then you can scale it and do all your measurements and work out all your square meter, all your areas based off just like on your screen. So that'd be pretty cool to look into. I said that at the time, but haven't done anything about it. But I reckon that, I could be wrong with the name. There's a lot of different apps around, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. That'd definitely be something worth looking into to do that, so you don't have to print out big A1 sheets of paper. It's a lot more accurate too, rather than, well, I assume it's more accurate, providing you get the scale set up right from the first time, rather than just using your ruler and working out which side of the thick line it goes onto, which could be a couple 100 mil thick. And Project Landscape has got a couple of questions. The first one is, what current landscaping trend do you think will be really outdated in the near future? I did read this and I was going to think of one beforehand, but I forgot to think of one beforehand. So let's see if we can think of one on the spot. There's nothing comes to mind immediately. Like, there's always the stone that comes and goes, a particular natural stone. Concrete's always been around and will continue to be. Like, I think there's certainly a trend of going with a lot more native and environmentally conscious plants, and that's not necessarily a trend, I suppose, but that's not going to disappear. That's only going to get more momentum behind it. There's a lot of concrete and architectural concrete being used, and I can't see that changing either, because it's a sort of timeless look. There's a lot of like timber screens, been around forever and still going. So I don't know if there is anything that I could think of. Yeah, nothing's coming to mind. I should have thought of that more when I saw the question, but there may not be any that. But I'm also not that up with all the trends and fashions to know what's current. Like, I'm very slow at adopting things, so I usually wait to see something being used for 7 years and think, oh, this might be a good idea. I'll give that a try. So I'll probably be using it when it's not a fashion, not a trend anymore, and not good to use. And his other question was purchasing the truck a game changer? Yeah, it certainly was. I think having one of my employees with a truck license would also be a game changer, which I should do. I've been meaning to do that for ages, and then you think, oh, it's too expensive to do, but then you realise that, like, I've hired a truck a few times because I can't get to the job and they don't have a truck license, so should have done that a lot sooner. But yeah, it's so awesome just without being able to pick things up and not relying on other people to get deliveries, especially being in Geelong because everything's so close. So it'd be a different story if you're in Melbourne or one of the bigger cities where you've got to drive for a while to pick something up. Like, most of the time, if we drive 15 minutes, we'll be able to get to wherever we need to and get a load of soil or rock or whatever, and go into the tip as well. But I suppose in saying that, it does make you do things maybe less efficiently in some ways. So if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be doing a lot of the excavation that we do ourselves. I'd be forced to get someone else to, but because I have got it, I can just hire a machine and get rid of the soil or whatever it is myself. So it does have its cons, but yeah, I was debating if I was going to get another vehicle, if I just get another truck, even just a small car license one, and just because it's got so much flexibility in how they can be used and things and what they can carry. But yeah, I think this is the third truck I've had, and it was new when I bought it. So, and that was pretty awesome too. So, because they can, again, I'm no good at machines or vehicles, so I've had other ones that were older and they'd break down, and then you got to hire one anyway. So this worked out well, having a new one that hasn't given me any grief so far. And I've had it for, I think it's just over 5 years. So yeah, and that's just an Isuzu. I think it's a 3.5 ton NPR 60 might be. So I'll get like 2.5 meters of crushed rock in there. Pretty sure that's over the limit, but drives okay. So yeah, that was definitely a game changer. But I've also got my 2 utes are both tippers, so that's also a bonus. It makes things a lot easier than you would think. Local Green Beans said, do you put margins on everything that you buy, or just certain products like soil, for example? So I don't. I'm not that good at quoting, because I don't do it the way a lot of other people would, where you work out exactly what things cost and then add a certain percentage. For example, if I'm working out a meter of concrete, like, it might cost you, so let's say it's $280 for a cubic meter of concrete to buy. Like, I'll just charge $440 per cubic meter, because I know it's going to be within that. And then, if there's waiting time, you're covered by that. So there's certain things. So I'll chuck margins on them, but they're not certain percentages. Like with Rio, I'll just like, or with steel, I'll just allow a certain amount, which I know covers it. And then I've started adding, because we're so busy, I've started adding, I'll work out my normal rate and then add 10% to everything just as an extra profit, because I haven't been making a lot of profit anyway, but also because we've booked out so far in advance that we need to allow for price increases. And like I say, yeah, with soil, it's the same deal. Like it might cost, I don't know. And it's a good way of not having to, be that accurate on pricing all the time either, because I reckon it might cost maybe $60 a cube for soil. And I'll allow, I think it's 100 I'll allow for soil. So yeah, so there's a lot of margin to be made there. But it's not a particular, so I'll do put it on everything. Answering your question, I'll do add margin to everything. But and like with plants, like if I'm using a 14 centimeter or a 6-inch pot, I'll charge $18 to supply and install, and you can get them for like 6 or 7. So there's good money to be made in plants. But the more, and then the trees will be a certain amount more. Probably don't allow enough for the big plants. Actually, I only really work out how long it takes to put it in and to get it on site. But yeah, so it's not really an accurate way of doing things, and a one that I would recommend. But that's the way I've done it all my life, and I'm still here. So, but yeah, we could be making more money, so it's probably a thing that I would be better off looking at. But then it's one of those things where people talk about how much you should be charging per hour and all that, and like it's the same with how much margin you should be charging on things. They really don't matter if you don't allow enough time to do the job. Like if you're charging $100 per hour against a guy who's charging $50 per hour, if you allow half as much time to do it as what he has, you're going to make the same amount of money, even though you're charging double what he charges. So there's a lot of like business coaches that bang on about what you should be charging per hour and that, but it's only one part of the puzzle. You need to make sure you allow enough time for everything. And the chat with Peter Shaw was a great one. That was end of last year. It might have even been the end of the year before. Whenever it was a good chat. I think it's like episode 30. But he was talking about how when he works out his pricing, he'll allow, I think it was 6.5 hours per day, because that's about how much work you get done. So because you've got the setting up in the morning, packing up at the end of the day. If you're looking at a plan, you've got to work out what's going where. So you're not always working at 100% efficiency. So you worked out 6.5 hours is a good amount to charge. So again, that's something you've got to work into it, because if you're working out your $100 an hour and you're thinking you're going to work 8 hours a day, then you're actually not charging $100 an hour. You're charging less. So yeah, so it's an important thing to work out what your margins are, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. You've got to work out the whole project, and try and make sure that you make money on every element that you're putting in there. Planted space. Simon has said, how many hours do you reckon you will have put into your Mifkas garden before build week on site? So I did, I think it was 12 hours yesterday. I went and did another hour today. And I've probably done maybe 40 at a guess up to this point. There's also like going out to see sponsors to look at the product that they're supplying, which I suppose you would include that. So I reckon it could be, I'd say we've done, let's say 65 to 70 hours so far. And we've got another 2 Saturdays before we start. And I'll be doing some big days there. And I think there's a Monday public holiday in there, but I might be working in Point Lonsdale for that. But I would say we'll have done close to 100 hours. Certainly won't be any more. So somewhere 90 to 100 hours before we start. But I'm pretty happy with what we're getting done, because I want to get it done so that there's time for fluffing at the end. And yeah, I'm starting to do things that aren't really that necessary. Like there's other things. There's people who could help out doing those things, like painting. And there's certain things that might have taken me an hour and a half, but that's doing it at the shed by myself. So an hour and a half at the shed by myself would take 2.5 hours for someone else at the garden show, because everything's a lot slower and you're talking to people and asking questions. Someone asks a question, you get distracted. So what the hours that I'm doing at the shed building now are worth double what they would be at the show. So it makes a massive difference. And that's just something I've learned from experience on these type of events. Like saying working on the block, you're always looking for your tape measure or a certain tool that you put down. You put down a tool and someone else grabs it to use it. And so you're always walking around trying to find things and wasting so much time. So when you can work at 100% efficiency like I do at the shed, it's it's pretty good. And speaking of the garden show, like I've mentioned a few times that people have been messaging me wanting to volunteer to help out. So if anyone is keen, send me a message to if you're wanting to help out, because I'm happy to have on as many people as are interested in coming along. And yeah, just experience what it's like to work at the garden show. And like you don't have to do the whole lot. You can do one day, you can do half a day, anything, just to see what it's like there. Next question is from Lloyd Sharp. What has been the most challenging thing to teach employees, work ethic or detail? That's quite a similar question to whose question was that? No, can't find it. But it's a similar question. But like I said to Lloyd, that you can't teach work ethic. And I also said this to a fellow. I've got a school-based apprentice starting. His first day is going to be at the garden show, actually. So that's a baptism of fire. But I had met him and his old man and said that you can't teach work ethic, but that's a different story for like a 16 or 17-year-old, because they don't necessarily have it at that age. But when you're in your 20s, if you haven't got it then, you're unlikely to get it later on. So you can't. So again, I wouldn't employ someone if they don't have a good work ethic, because landscaping is hard work. So you've got to want to do hard work. You can make it a lot easier than it needs to be sometimes as well. Like we use a lot more machines. We should use a lot more machines than what we do. You just need to make things a bit easier. So you don't need to, like, I love working like a maniac, but I realise not everyone likes to do that. And it's not good for everyone's body either. And so just because I like to do it doesn't mean everyone else should, because it's not a normal thing to do. It's really the detail is what you teach. And like I said before, having pride in your work. And what I love seeing when my guys will take photos of work that they've done. It doesn't happen a huge amount, but when they'll send me a photo of a choice cut that they've done, it's always pretty cool to see they actually care about it that much. So definitely the detail. I think we're going to be the shortest episode, I think. So we've got the last question here from Matt, who's the fishing chippy. What's a tool that you don't have that you wish you did? So I've just started using that glass fiber reinforcing rods that Liam Riley spoke about from Indigenous Design Landscaping. So I've only done it for a couple of trenches at the moment, but looking at it, like if you were doing a concrete area out of it, like a paved area, there's a lot of tying that you'd be doing. Like the grids, I think they're 400 by 500, so it's not like a 200 by 200 like normal mesh is. But if you were setting them up, you'd have to do a lot of tying with the Rio. So I'd love to get one of those battery-operated Rio tires. But I thought, like I saw one getting used, and thought, I'm going to get one of them. So jumped onto Sydney Tools or Total Tools, wherever it was, looked at the price, and it's like $3,500. So I thought, I'm not getting one of them. Like if we were doing pools or just concreting all the time, I would definitely get one. But that's pretty hard to justify, because then, like any tool, it's going to break down. I haven't seen an Azito one kick it around, which obviously wouldn't break down because they're unbreakable. But that's a lot of money to spend on something that is likely to break, and especially working around steel and concrete and rock, and it gets in the dirt. So, but they'd be a pretty cool tool to have. Like I've bought one of the Berta Raimondi sponges, the motorized sponge that you walk behind. I think that might have been $3,500 as well. And I hate that. Like it doesn't work as well as what I'd like it to. So that just sits at the shed, and I've been meaning to sell it. So if anyone wants that, I'm pretty cheap. because I haven't used it in years and got a new sponge on it, but it just sits there gathering dust. So yeah, that's definitely the tool I would like. Just bought a new nail gun for the first time. I reckon the ones I've got, I might have had when I started the business. So I was using the old school Pasload nail guns with the long batteries in it still. And just bought a new one for the garden show to make sure that, because like every Pasload, they're not always that reliable. So I wanted to have one that was reliable. So I just bought a new nail gun there, and also there was a Spear and Jackson one, which the tool shop sold me. So I think it was like $290. Might have been less, might be 250. So you can't go wrong with that. So I reckon that might be like an Azito version. It's got a massive chamber in it, so you can put two clips of nails in there. And so far it's so good. Like, it certainly looks cheap. It's not the prettiest thing getting around, but shoots nails into timber. So that's all you want to do. Project Landscape has always got a question in just at the end. Out of all the units apprentices do through TAFE schooling, what are the ones you focus on the most to make them super capable? I'm not a big fan of what they learn at school, because there's nothing that I've had them learn that I can't teach them, and I don't teach them. Like, they'll be doing things for us for 2 years, and then in the third year of school, like, they'll be doing it, every month they'll be doing the same thing for 2 years, and then in school in their third year, then they learn how to do it. So it's a bit of a weird way to do it. Like, I certainly don't know how to. Well, I don't know a better system. There's certainly a lot to learn, but it seems a bit weird the way that they do it. And that could be because I get my guys like paving as soon as possible, because the sooner they can pave, the more valuable they're going to be and the more they'll learn, because you don't learn anything by watching someone else do it. But yeah, there's someone here saying that they do off-campus learning, which I think, could be the way to go. And the only thing I don't like about that is the good thing about them going to school is they're going to make contacts with people within the landscaping industry. So they can meet other business owners and other landscapers and work out. They might talk about how they do things differently. So then you could learn a little bit that way. And because I think it's good for people to go and work for other companies, because you see things done differently. So it's a good idea to do that if you're looking to start your own business. You could go and work with someone else who you haven't worked with before, just to see how things are done in a different company. But there was one thing I did learn from my apprentices, and that was just working out the datum point. So just having a zero on site, which might sound crazy, but I was never taught that. Like, we probably did it a couple of times just out of luck, but not luck, but just, you work out everything's off the floor level inside, which that makes sense. But they sort of taught to make one somewhere else where you can see everything, and then you can leave that height there and work everything out off that. So they learned that there, but other than that, there's nothing that they've learned that I could teach them. And that they also learn to do things differently as well. So the way one person does a retaining wall isn't the same way other people do, and it's not that one's wrong. It's just more ways to do things. I've got another question, or how to read a plan. Lots of things that they don't get to learn at TAFE. Yeah, and especially because they go to TAFE 1 day a week so they only go for 3 terms. So if it's 1 day a week, you go on 30 days a year. And I also, like, something I hate about schools and education is that they market it or target it towards the least intelligent people in the class, so that they work through slow things. So if you're intelligent, you've got to wait, you've got to learn slower so that everyone else can catch up. So again, I've got no idea how you could do it any better than that, because you've got to teach everyone. But yeah, that's something I was frustrated with. So when you know how to do something and you can work through it pretty quick, you've got to sit there waiting for everyone else to catch up. So yeah, not a big fan of a lot of education things, but I don't have the solution to improve them, so I shouldn't argue. Mark from Growman's Coaching said, what's one attribute in a person you would recommend a landscaper should have? He's been a good person, I reckon. I bang on about that a fair bit, but I do often say that good things happen to good people, and it's such even though it's a trade and construction business, it's customer service. So you're working with clients, and your employees will be dealing with the clients as well, and you're working with people like the next door neighbours and people in the street. So you want good people around. You aren't, swearing at the top of their lungs and out the front smoking and parking across people's driveway and leaving and getting soil delivered on the neighbour's nature strip. So we like to try and stay away from the neighbours as much as possible because they haven't paid us to be there. It's the client who's got us there. Like, you obviously got to park in the street, but try and be as nice to everyone else around them as possible. So I reckon having someone who actually cares about people is probably one of the best attributes you could have. And then a good work ethic to go along with that. Andrea Urans asked, finding staff is hard at the moment, not experiencing anything like it. Are you having the same issue? Everyone I talk to is having the same issue. The only areas I'm getting staff is just pure luck, like the school-based apprentice. Like, he's going to work every Friday for a couple of terms, but he just contacted me out of the blue. I put a landscape architect on, and she just called me up out of the blue. So I wasn't advertising for those two positions. I'm actually advertising for an landscaping apprentice and not having anyone decent apply. Like, in the ad, I put in there at the end that the application letter is the important part of the application, so treat it accordingly. And more than half of the people don't even include one. Or if they do include one, it says, I'm really looking to start my career in plumbing, so looking forward to the role. So there's just a copy and paste one. I got to get it that when you're unemployed looking for work, that there's a bit of effort involved in having to apply for different jobs, but I'm not looking for someone who's just looking for a job. I want someone who wants to do landscaping. So if they don't have a passion for it, I don't have a passion for them. But it's really weird times. No, don't know. It'll change eventually, obviously, but I was talking to someone about it. I don't know whether it's because, like, for example, if a lot of people have started their own landscaping business, like let's say, 5 people start their own landscaping business, they all put on an apprentice. So then there's 10 people who are out of the labour pool, for example. So for every one person, and then that's if, like, most people would want at least one. And then the bigger they get, them, I'll put more on. So there's probably just maybe more businesses starting up potentially, but I don't know, because it is every industry. So it's really weird. Like, it's every industry within construction and outside of construction as well. No idea. But that was the last question. So it wasn't actually all that short an episode, but I appreciate everyone who got involved again. So next week we'll do the same. So I'll ask a question during the week and then you can answer that. I was going to try and work out how I can do the Instagram live on the landscaping podcast page as well, because some people follow that and don't follow InStyle Gardens. You can get an app for the computer, so I'm not looking to doing that, or just take one of the kids' iPads and whack that up here. But I'll put the question box up again during the week, and I thanks everyone for getting involved again. So the next episode coming out 6th of March is Les Edwards from Eddie Landscapes. So then we've got one more of these, probably 2 more. So I'll do one the day before we start the garden show, and then I'll get straight to bed because I've got to get up early then. But 2 more of these, and then into the garden show. So thank you very much for everyone. Oh, I've got one more question here from Jake. I don't know how long that question's been there. It's weird. Some questions are in the normal text, and then some go a little question box. So Jake Morga has said, what do you think is the most profitable aspect in landscaping? Well, you're asking the wrong person there. None of it is for me. Probably plants, I reckon. That's why you see a lot of designers wanting to provide the plants, because it's easy to do. You just got to buy them, send a list to the nursery, and they send them back out to you, and then you made your money. And then the landscape has to put them in. So, definitely plants would be. And then provided you've done the right soil prep, they're easy to put in. So, that's definitely the easiest to go. I think pool builders seem to do it right. So if you're putting a pool in, they're usually making around a 30% profit margin, whereas the landscape, if you're doing really well, you're going to make around 10%. So there's some numbers I've been told, but yeah, definitely the biggest profitable area in landscaping is plants, which is crazy. Can you think of how long it takes to do paving and build a deck and all the other stuff that you do? And then plants are usually done in a couple of days at the most, and that's how you can make the most money. So maybe you should just do plants all the time, get rid of the construction. But thanks very much for everyone who offered a question. Really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.